Dude, what is going on? Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawalker, your host, and today we're going to be checking out this new album from Muse, Will of the People. Multi-award-winning, massive rock outfit, Muse have come back out of the woodwork with this new album, Will of the People. This record is the follow-up to 2018's Simulation Theory, an album that, as a follow-up for Drones, was, for me, intensely underwhelming. I had heard a lot of Muse in my adolescence and didn't really get into them until 2015 with Drones, which I thought was a fantastic record. I was pretty much introduced to Drones, Absolution, The Resistance, and The Second Law all at the same time. I would later go on to Showbiz and Origin of Symmetry and Black Holes and Revelations, but the stuff that I was introduced to, I was really into for quite a while. It really feels like Muse developed a strong formula in the late 2000s with The Resistance, specifically with very critical, politically aware tracks like Uprising or MK Ultra. These more politically charged tracks, while being pretty plain in their message for the most part, felt fairly balanced and not too in your face. Not that I have a problem with politics and music. When it comes down to it, everything is politics. That's just kind of how it is, but there are ways to do it that are certainly more tasteful than what Muse has brought to the table here. The Second Law backpedaled from this sound a bit to mixed critical reception. Personally, I think The Second Law is one of their better albums. Supremacy and Panic Station are some of the best tracks that they've put out. But past that, I think Drones really introduced a sound that they have yet to top or really do properly again. Thematically, it's basically just Muse doing Master of Puppets, government bad, war bad, globalism bad.
You're not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
But most importantly, and most relevant to this review, Drones introduced what I think is one of the best and worst things that has happened to this band. The writing on Drones, it just became so ham-fisted. And it works on Drones because of the intensity. It really is Muse just kind of pushing the boundary on hard rock from cover to cover. But that style, that lack of subtlety, has become a complete detriment to their creative output. Matthew Bellamy is a great vocalist, and on Will of the People, he does bring it. He brings the goods. But it feels like a lot of the more whimsical, more ethereal elements that Muse used to toy with are either just gone from this album or feel like an afterthought or are kind of just ruined by the lyricism just being bad, which again comes around to feeling, again, like an afterthought. The track We Are Fucking Fucked comes to mind. You used to get tracks like the Exogenesis Symphony off of The Resistance, whereas the closest this album gets to that kind of feeling is maybe Verona, which feels like a cheap outtake from Simulation Theory, or the track You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween. And even that song feels like a bit of a stretch, because what that song sounds like to me is Muse trying to do their take on Every Day is Halloween, down to the light industrial and synth pop embellishments. And the blatant pulls from other artists does not end there. Most notably, the first track on the album immediately lifts Marilyn Manson's The Beautiful People, which I don't know how to justify this. I don't know how they thought this was a good idea. The track has parts that are okay, but then they married that pull with The Beautiful People to what sounds like a fucking Green Day track. It's just a complete mess. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't agree with it. I don't know what any of this shit is, and I'm terrified.
I don't know what any of this shit is, and I'm fucking scared.
In all seriousness, though, there's totally parts of this opening track that are great, but this awkward union of styles completely derails the song. Compliance doesn't really improve things much either. This track feels like it's stuck too heavily to the synth-heavy output from Simulation Theory, while again pulling from more contemporary music with a bass line that sounds pretty suspiciously similar to the bass line from Tame Impala's The Less I Know The Better, which at least is a better mix here, but still feels off. The synth seems especially hard to work around. Liberation is a piano ballad track that basically sounds like Muse doing a Queen song with a double kick drum, which is incredibly jarring and not particularly great. And again, the lyrics are just very heavy-handed, even past just being gimmicky with lines like, "We intend to erase your place in history and soon you'll be left with nothing," which I guess could be kind of a sick line, but the music doesn't match the threatening machismo of that statement at all. Won't Stand Down is Muse doing a fucking AWOL Nation track. This is Sail with a breakdown. Why? Ghosts, How Can I Move On is another touching piano ballad, which after the gauntlet of tracks before it ends up being a little bit of a refresher, but it still is not a particularly outstanding song. You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween, again, feels like it's trying to be a synth-pop throwback track. There's some Ministry here. There's kind of some like Michael Jackson style beats here. It's very 80s. But it does end up being one of the better tracks here. Very catchy, very dancey. I'm incredibly surprised this wasn't one of the singles, because this is leagues better than the first half of the album. And it is really one of the few moments on the album where the ham-fisted writing works, and that's because this song is just so boldly leaning into a gimmick, and if it wasn't trying to hit that very goth-heavy synth, it wouldn't work. Kill or Be Killed feels like they're trying to make a track that would fit on Drones, but what they've done here is they've pulled the main riff from Let the Bodies Hit the Floor by fucking Drowning Pool, and they added a little bit of snaz to it. And it's just really starting to baffle me how they've managed to pull so much from just so many places, and I'm starting to think that maybe there's stuff that I've completely missed that are just rips from somewhere else, be it drum parts, or guitar parts, or the bass, or vocals, or whatever, but it's so blatant at this point that I just can't believe it. Verona, like I said, is the closest you get to those spacey, washed-out vocals that Mr. Bellamy is known for, but it doesn't have much of an impact here. It's basically a weak adaptation of the love plot in Romeo and Juliet, referencing kissing with poison on the lips, and the very blatant song title of Verona, the setting of Romeo and Juliet. Subtle, I know. Euphoria feels probably the closest to a Black Holes and Revelations track, but wearing an uncomfortable punk skin with this very two-step heavy beat that doesn't really work very well. And the final track, We Are Fucking Fucked, is not an awful track instrumentally. I can't spot any immediate ripoffs, so that's good, but I certainly do not care for the lyrics nor the vocal delivery with these weak chants that feel lazy with the chorus of We Are Fucking Fucked. It just very simply feels lazy. There was no need to write something so utterly dull. Why wasn't there more thought put into this? I really don't understand most of the decisions made on this album. It's a pile of mostly plagiarized writing as main elements of tracks that are incredibly sloppily put together. Lyrically, it's about as subtle as a shotgun blast, and there is stuff that is clearly better and more well thought out, but those elements are hardly the main segments of songs, so they end up being wasted and just smushed between these really lackluster, stitches together of tracks that are just not very good. Really, the only track here that is worth any amount of time is You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween, and man, that is a really specific mood I'm gonna have to be in for that one. I really, really love a ton of the stuff that Muse has put out over the years, but this progression post-simulation theory makes a very unfortunate amount of sense to me. They started down this sort of half-experimentation on that album with safe ideas that were new for them, but were already played out by the time they got around to doing them. So it just results in this, fake innovation, this empty change and development that is just completely devoid of meaningful content, and what ultimately culminates on this album as a complete waste of time for everyone involved, be it the band or the listeners. Will of the People is a pretty hard one. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this album in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe. Check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to those are in the description below. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on the flip side.